First thing I'd like to call on all of you to do after leaving here is to talk to at least 10 people outside of our education bubble to inform them about what is happening, because the mass public, they really don't know what's happening. And what is happening is that education has become a huge trillion-dollar industry. It's being taken over by corporations. And instead of funds going to K-12, going to community colleges, going to UC, going to CSU, they are being outsourced to consultants. Consultants has become a huge industry. So as Steve said, I was a government attorney for the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing, and they don't just license teachers, they also license school administrators. They work with the CSU and other institutes of higher education to approve teacher preparation programs and school administrator programs. They monitor those programs. They're supposed to be monitoring proper assignments. And I definitely did see a lot of things. I'm not going to talk about that. There's YouTube videos on that if you choose to watch them. What I am going to talk about today is the problem that I have seen and I am working with other people up in Sacramento, and I have literally seen a very, very ugly pattern of people that are in key political decision-making positions that have aligned themselves or are themselves either lobbyists for corporate clients or are involved some way in making profit for these corporate interests that are involved in the education industry. An example is the Strategic Education Services. They have as their client City College of San Francisco, Santa Monica College, LAUSD, and also Connections Academy, LLC. Connections Academy is the second largest online education company in the country. It's now owned by Pearson. How many of you have heard of Pearson? Okay. Pearson is the large international global testing company. In 2006, in addition to publishing and testing, they went into the assessment business by buying out National Computer Systems. Bill Gorth was the founder of NCS, and so actually if you look up Pearson, it's NCS Pearson, and that's why, because in 2006 they bought National Computer System, and they're headquartered not here in the United States, they're headquartered in London. So that's where their headquarters are, but they have offices all over the world. And they are privatizing, and not just by testing everyone to death, but by assessments. And it's not just teacher evaluations and tying teacher evaluations to student tests. It's data-driven, basically profit-driven data. And they're heavily involved. They have a contract with Stanford University and a company called Achieve Inc. And through the funding by J.P. Morgan Chase, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Lumina Foundation, they designed the Common Core standards. And a lot of people don't realize that. I don't know if many of you know who Lumina Foundation is. Lumina is a very large nonprofit entity, and nonprofits have really entered the field. They're so-called nonprofit, but actually they're essentially funneling a lot of public funds, and they're getting private philanthropy foundations in collaboration with them. They don't pay taxes. Lumina is a conversion foundation. It used to be, I can't remember the name now, USA Corporation, you can Wikipedia it, but they basically, the majority of their assets were student loans. So they sold $1 billion worth of student loan assets when they converted to Lumina to Sallie Mae. And if you look at their board, they have a lot of people in the student loan industry. One interesting thing to note for those of you that are UC folks is Mark Udoff sits on the board. Mark Udoff is the president of UC. He sits on the board of the Lumina Foundation. And so when I say that our public key decision makers are sitting on the boards of these privatization entities, they are. And I don't know how much room we were going to have, but I was going to show you.
No, I was going to take this footage.
Okay. We have literally connected tons and tons of organizations. We're putting them into databases and connecting the dots, both at the state level and at the national level, of how many of our government officials, and when I say government officials, I'm not just saying senators and assembly member and our governor, I'm also saying city council members, school board members. How many of you know of EdVoice? EdVoice? Okay, EdVoice is a top campaign contributor in the state of California. It was founded by then Assembly member Ted Lambert and former Insurance Commissioner Steve Poizner. On the board used to sit, I don't know if he's still on there, Reed Hastings, who's the CEO of Netflix. He also sits on the board of Facebook. He also sits on the board of the California Charter School Association. He is heavily involved. He's heavily involved in rocket ship learning. Rocket ship learning uses this IT entity called Dreambox for their interactive model. Basically, the IT world has infiltrated into the education industry, and they are just coming up with ideas by the minute on how they can produce data, how they can produce tests, how they can assess student performance. It's really, they're outsourcing to just numerous organizations. How many of you have heard of the organization WestEd? Okay. When we hear about the fact that we have a budget crisis, of course that needs to be questioned after recently you probably read in the paper that $2 billion has been found. WestEd is an organization which is considered a public agency, and yet numerous school districts, county office of eds, and numerous foundations such as Gates, JP Morgan, Lumina, all these entities are funding WestEd. So if we did away with all these nonprofits and all these so-called consultants and lobbyists who literally have conflicts with people that are there are actually active lobbyists sitting on elected school boards when they represent clients such as K-12 Inc. and rocket ship learning. That's actually happening, but no one's doing anything about it. And so I propose to you, and I have been at a number of events now, that we need to build a statewide coalition. We can't attack everything. This is happening worldwide, it's certainly happening nationwide, but we need to build a statewide coalition so we have a group of people ready to go to do our own ballot initiative.